Seems like they're not going to use that. At the podium? Okay. All right. Just double checking.
I would say give him that one. Let him take that one. Good morning.
I'm Melissa. Thank you. Yeah, please. Yeah, it looks good. Actually, I wish we'd have it back when. This looks good. It's been a lot of time. Yeah. That's good.
I'm playing the role in the living room.
No. That's why I asked that earlier.
Awesome. There we go. Sir, how you doing? Good to see you. Good. Likewise. Good to see you. Hey, Councilwoman. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? Jenny, it's so nice to be here. Okay.
Hey Jenny, how you been?
Good to see you. How are you?
Good, you?
How are the kids?
Everybody's good. They're growing up. We were at our son's orientation at St. Ignatius last night. He's in 8th grade, rising up.
I'm at the Nester.
Yeah.
My
How are you
daughter's a
doing?
freshman.
What do you do now, right?
It's okay. She's so happy.
Yeah.
So
You catch up on things, right?
yeah, you know, it's all right. A little more gardening, a little more knitting,
Exactly.
a little more work.
And then welcome her home to help when she's home.
I'm excited to it's such interesting
Yeah,
times.
exactly. Good seeing you.
Does that start?
How you been? Hey, Jen. Good to see you.
Always. A fabulous.
Welcome, everybody.
Congrats.
We're going to try to start on time. I know we're about a minute late. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. This is a monumental occasion for us. We are really looking forward to talking to you all about what we would like to start up in the unsheltered homelessness space. And the mayor has brought me on in part as a senior advisor to launch specifically this project, among others. So with that, Mayor, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. How's everybody doing? I'm really excited about today's announcement. The county executive and I, as well as members of the City Council, Councilwoman Stephanie House-Jones, we've been really focused on how the city of Cleveland can have a more aggressive, focused, targeted approach to address our unhoused and homelessness population throughout the city of Cleveland. And we all recognize that since the pandemic, incentives and funding has subsided, we've seen an increase in those in our city that are unhoused. And there are a lot of key factors to that. Inflation, the cost of housing, the rise of mental health issues in our city. And we recognize that for us to address this in the city of Cleveland, our city needed to have a more focused strategy. So this morning we are announcing the A Home for Every Neighbor initiative that puts housing placement at the center of our intensive and targeted outreach approach to address this issue. And there are great models across the country. I talked to the former mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner, about the work he has done in that city. And since 2012 in the city of Houston, more than 60% of folks experiencing homelessness were able to get housed. Over 30,000 people since 2012. And in Cleveland and across Cuyahoga County, what excites me about this issue is that it's a solvable problem. It's a solvable problem. And we want to make sure we can nip this issue in the bud before it becomes more systemic. Later today, we'll be announcing our RFP, an over $2 million investment to provide this type of support to our residents and those that are unhoused across the city of Cleveland. And we believe this is just the start for our ability to address this issue. So again, I'm excited about this collaboration. I'm excited about all of your passion and commitment, and I know that we can do it collectively as a team. So that being said, I give it to my colleague and friend and a resident of Cleveland, our county executive.
Thank you, my
Chris
mayor.
Renee.
Thank you, my mayor. I am Chris Renee, I'm county executive, and it's good to be with you. Particularly want to say to the mayor and to our council members, Councilwoman Stephanie House-Jones, Mayor Bibb, and the city representatives, thank you for the partnership with the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. Mayor, we've been at this together, formulating some ideas about how to go about helping those who need us most, are unhoused in this community, and your staff has been diligent and with great intent about solving this problem that you said. So I want to first thank the city for their leadership on this. A Home for Every Neighbor is a program that Cuyahoga County wholeheartedly supports. I want to secondly thank our nonprofit partners that are out in this room today, in a crowded room. I spent a lot of time back when at City Hall, and it used to be the City Planning Commission chambers, but it's good to be with all of our nonprofit frontline partners. We couldn't do this work without this robust network of public, private, and nonprofit partners, underscore the nonprofit partners. I think part of the reason the mayor and I both feel that this is a solvable problem, frankly, is because of you, the brain trust that's out here that works on everyday solutions. First, for giving temporary support that need us most to those who need us most, that are literally unsheltered and on the streets, but in the long stretch goal to get permanent housing a reality in this community for all, housing for all. I want to acknowledge my director of Office of Homeless Services. Actually, she's all of our director, working for the county and the city, Melissa Sirac, working, obviously in conjunction with Emily and the team on the everyday support on the public side. But again, we couldn't do this without you. I just have a few prepared remarks to mention some of the things that county has ongoing, but this has been an iterative support network between the city of Cleveland, where the preponderance of our work is, and particularly in the downtown and near neighborhoods, we have work to do and we will continue. But Cuyahoga County, again, if I say one thing again today, we are partners to the city of Cleveland, and we support a home for every neighbor. I appreciate the intentionality, someone who stepped out and said, let's get something done here. So the Home for Every Neighborhood plan is aligned very much with the Cuyahoga County continuum of our strategic action plan, which we launched just last year, for addressing the issues of unsheltered homelessness. Working together with the city of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and our regional stakeholders and partner agencies, you that are out here today, we will bring down our rates of homelessness. We will bring our community to housing resources. We all know we've been hard hit since COVID, and we're still digging out. In Cuyahoga County, we've invested significantly in the fight to end homelessness. That is our goal. Our plan at this point states that in 5 years, we want to be reducing our unhoused population and their being unhoused by 25%. We want this, obviously, to reach all age groups, but with the sole exception of our Department of Children and Family Services, no program in Cuyahoga County has received more new funding and investment than the Office of Homeless Services. Over $20 million have been spent in ARPA dollars and discretionary funding to improve current capacity in shelters. Again, many of our shelter managers out here today, and increasing addressing cold weather surge capacity issues. The county's dedicated approximately $14 million per year in county levy funds to eliminate homelessness. I would be remiss if I didn't say we need your support on the HHS levy coming up March 19th. In 2023, Cuyahoga County's led the collaborative applicant to secure over $41 million in HUD funds. We couldn't do this. We both worked quite a bit with Congresswoman Brown, with Congressman Brown, and certainly our secretary that's from this town, Secretary Marcia Fudge of the Housing and Urban Development Department. Cuyahoga County's created the first countywide Department of Housing. We did that intentionally to work with the city of Cleveland to first and foremost start with housing for those who need us most, affordable housing for all residents. Our ongoing programs aim to decrease homelessness, as I said, by 25% in the coming years. And again, we're working specifically on some programs in target areas. The county's investing specifically for those that are formerly incarcerated as a return to our community, and right out of the gates work with our Office of Reentry on the need for housing. It's hard to start up in a community, again, if you don't have adequate housing. The county's financially supported a housing first strategy, which began 22 years ago, and since we've created 13 apartment buildings with 782 units of permanent housing. We'll double down, especially with the mayor's initiative in a home for every neighborhood. So again, we are glad to be a partner to the city of Cleveland. I think you recognize, and as often as you see us together, that we are committed to a partnership with the city of Cleveland. We in Cleveland will be opening soon a child wellness campus. Our focus will be to prevent the growth of youth homelessness by offering treatment and wraparound services. And again, with the mayor's support and councilperson's support, it'll be opened here in the city of Cleveland soon, working with the centers. Most recently in January, Cuyahoga County Office of Homeless Services, the Reach Youth Action Board, A Place for Me Collaborative, and other community partners announced details of Reaching for New Heights. These were youth, young adults, creating a plan to end homelessness in their own age cohort of, by, and for our youth and young adult community. Thanks to the $3.9 million grant from HUD, we again have created a plan with our youth and young adults. So we're on the move, and this doesn't happen overnight, but with the city and the mayor's team has put together with a home for every neighbor, it takes us much further. So Mayor, we support you, Councilwoman, we support you, and we look forward to working with all our agency partners on getting a home for every neighbor. Thanks.
Yeah, so.
And to Councilwoman House, I think you're next.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm thankful to the mayor, his team, and our county partners to get to this place. You know, for those of us who live in Cleveland, commute to Cleveland, you see it every day, right? It is right dead set in front of your face when you are driving down and you see people who are outside, no place to go, or if they're actually just living on the streets. And one of the things, you know, since I've been serving in this role in council, I've had a lot of hard conversations with those who live in the community, those who are property owners who are uncomfortable, you know, with seeing that every day, right? And one thing I ask people is, for your uncomfortability in seeing it, imagine living it. I encourage people to go talk to people. You know, I'm not going to talk to them. And I'm like, well, why not? These are our neighbors, you know, and you will be surprised of just how open many of our unhoused residents are to talk to you, to tell you their stories, how they got there, and how they want partnership. And so when we talk about what's being unveiled today, a home for every neighbor, it's an opportunity to really connect people to what they truly deserve. Regardless of your socioeconomic status, no matter your creed, your gender, status, everybody deserves a place that you call home, right? And to see that in collaboration, the city and the county coming together to invest more, being more innovative, really trying to look at updating our rules, and that's where the partnership will come in with Cleveland City Council, because we know many of our rules and ordinances are not conducive to 21st century and beyond standards, building and housing standards, right? So, along with my partner, Councilman Chris Harsh, and those of us in Cleveland City Council, we stand ready and willing to work, to help update our laws, invest the dollars so that, the mayor and the county can actually execute. So really grateful for everyone's partnership and looking forward to how we continue to make sure that everyone here in Cleveland and really in Northeast Ohio has a place to call home. So with that, pass it over to Emily so she can get into the details.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman, and thank you all for being here. I have had many conversations with, I think, almost every single one of you around the table. And it's been an important part of how we went about the process of thinking through design of what we're launching today. So thank you. The partnership needs to continue, and we intend to do that as we work through deployment of the next steps. So I'm going to go over two major components of a home for every neighbor. And the first is to think through the design around a new approach to outreach and rehousing. And the second, which I'll get to in a moment, is an intentional focus on diversifying housing options. And I say that carefully, with intentionality. I think diversifying housing options needs to be something that we do mindfully, knowing that every person who's experiencing unsheltered homelessness is unique and has unique needs, and we need to accommodate those needs. So for the first one, this new approach to outreach and rehousing, I'm just going to go over the basic tenets of our design. It's an outline. The reason we're deploying an RFP at all is to make sure that we are co-designing this in a way that we think is effective with our partners. But it's a model that really keeps, some basic tenets in mind. And the first is best practices. You've heard this alluded to by the mayor. Best practices in cities that have success. It's not just Houston. We've been talking to many cities with the county's help and really thinking through how we can deploy those best practices here in Cleveland, because Cleveland itself is unique. The landscape, and that's the second tenet, the landscape of partners, the landscape of housing options is unique, and we need to make sure that we are mindful of that as we go about this outreach and rehousing strategy. And the third component that I think is really, really important that we've seen in other cities is that there's strong city leadership in this space. So we're being very particular about focusing on unsheltered homelessness, and for those of you who, I know those of you around the table know what that means. But for folks listening in, unsheltered homelessness means that, you know, it's not just sleeping on the street or in a tent. It's in the car. It's in places that are not intended, right, for human habitation. Sometimes it can even mean what we would traditionally think of as squatting, right? So living in a place that is not habitable. So we're looking to that category of unsheltered homelessness as something that is a city responsibility. So the goal of the request for proposals that's being deployed today, it should be up on the website right now, is to refine a Cleveland model in practice for outreach and rehousing. We've been told that this might be a low number, but I think it's a doable number and one that we want to make sure that we're doing correctly. We would like to rehouse 150 or more individuals in the next 18 months with strong, intentional, and targeted approaches. So that's what the RFP deals with, and I will, in a moment, hand it over to Matt White to talk in some more depth about the RFP itself. The second piece of our strategy is really about housing, and it has to be about housing. I'm sure you all know this. We can't really achieve our rehousing goals for our unsheltered neighbors without diversifying options. And like I said, those options need to be as diverse as the people in our community who are unsheltered. And the first thing I'll mention, there are many options for diversifying, but the first one I'll mention, and the one that the city is committed to, is permanent supportive housing in what's called a safe haven model. So we really need no barrier permanent supportive housing in Cleveland. It's not that it doesn't exist, but we need more of it. And it's an incredibly critical component of our strategy to see that through. But to do it, we need every single one of you around the tables and in the community to step up and support us in doing that. So everything from siting to thinking through, dismissing of stigmas is going to be necessary for us to, as a community, foster. There are also opportunities to build innovative affordable housing models. I think you can all probably name innovative affordable housing models that are your favorites, but we're interested in all of them. So I want to make sure that we open the door to all potential innovative affordable housing models. We're also very interested in pre-designed infill housing, and we've already released RFPs last fall that relate to that. So we want to see those through with development agreements. We're also very much committed to the time, energy, and necessary investment to use what's called parent leasing. And parent leasing is a strategy that other communities have used very effectively. We need to do it here. We would love to become the model for how to do it in Cleveland. I think we have the right landscape to do it. But it's essentially that the city and our partners can lease and manage scattered site locations that are designed for people who are exiting unsheltered homelessness to get the stability needed to continue on with their lives and join us in the city of Cleveland as productively as they see fit. And then the last thing I'll mention is that there are lots of opportunities. There are lots of opportunities for more diverse housing, and they're in that flyer that you might have gotten when you walked in. And I won't go over all of them, but there are many, and we ask you to join us in making sure that we're deploying each and every one of those. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Matt White. Matt has been instrumental, not just for the city, but also the county, I'm sure you all know this, in making sure that we are using best practices and executing this strategy. But Matt can speak to some of the more policy and national model questions that might come up and the standards that we plan to use in deploying this new outreach and rehousing strategy. So thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
Matt White with Housing Innovations. As Emily mentioned, I've had the opportunity to work with the county for the past several years, helping to develop and launch a strategic plan for the whole community. And then got a call, I think it was around November, December, from Emily saying, the city now wants to step up and we want to make a substantial investment and reduce unsheltered homelessness. And so I said, well, the first thing we have to do is talk to communities that have demonstrated success in this area. Unsheltered homelessness is increasing nationally, but there are targeted communities that have actually realized a reduction. So we started off by talking to Houston, which is obviously the national model, but there are several other communities, Dallas, Denver, St. Paul. And we looked at what are the essential elements in each of those communities that are contributing to their success, and then which of those essential elements are really scalable for Cleveland. And the slide illustrates, I think, 5 core components. The first is that the solution to unsheltered homelessness is housing. If we don't have housing packaged with the engagement, with the outreach, it's not going to work. In each of the communities that we talk to, in their efforts to engage and connect people to resources, they had to have a housing resource that was real. The second piece is that the housing engagement and the outreach piece are very different, and they need to be coordinated in a very intentional way. So the sort of term of art that's emerging is a housing central committee, where you have people who are engaged in recruiting landlords, connecting property managers, and securing those units and and all of the resources that Emily described in terms of the diversity of housing options. That has to be linked with the people who are doing the direct service connection with people on the streets, and that Housing Central Command makes that linkage. The third piece, when we talk to each of these communities, is that it's sometimes sort of a misconception or maybe a myth that people want to be on the streets, that they're choosing to live on the streets. And in fact, people want housing. They want a resolution. But it only works if we have a legitimate, real offer of housing at the point of engagement. And that housing has to be quick, it has to be real, and it has to be connected to services or supported for people so they can maintain their housing. The fourth component is that this is not simply just a City of Cleveland or a Office of Homeless Services approach. It's really a concerted effort among multiple stakeholders, and all of that needs to be aligned and coordinated. So we need behavioral health, physical health, RTA. We need our first responders, our law enforcement. All of them need to be part of a clear, engaged, unified strategy. And then the last component that we learned from these communities is that people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness themselves have a lot to say about it, as the Councilwoman said. And actually talking to people about their experience, we learned how to refine and improve the engagement process, to shorten the amount of time that it takes to get off the streets. So a continuous quality improvement process that's looking at the engaged feedback and the concerted collection of feedback from all the partners at the table. This is certainly you put your foot in the sand. You're moving on this. So the next piece is how do we execute on this? And if you move to the next slide, we talked to each of these communities about not just a lofty goal, but how do you actually realize this? The first piece is that we do it not in a diffused, distributed approach across the entire geographic region of the city, but you focus at a very narrow neighborhood or street level, and you identify people in that particular region. You do an assessment to identify their preferences, their needs, and then you work in that particular area to move to a housing relocation focus for everyone in that geographic area. The engagement happens by identifying people's needs and their preferences, securing housing rapidly, aligning all of the partners who need to be involved in this. So as I said, behavioral health, physical health, transportation, the departments of the city, the leadership of the county. And we need to do this in a rapid fashion. We have a resource that that we'll certainly share. In communities that are demonstrating success in this area, it cannot be a long, protracted process to get to housing. The goal is within 30 to 60 days, and that is tight. And so part of the way in which we'll achieve that goal is having a clear execution strategy. And as people on the streets, as neighbors in our communities start to see camps leaving, tents being dismantled, people going into housing, it generates momentum. And you find that other people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness are then more likely to engage and to accept offers of housing. So they need to see that this is real, and they need to feel that this is rapid. Finally, moving people into housing in many regards is actually the easier part. Supporting people in housing is the long-term commitment that the city has made. This is not just about relocating people to housing. It's about supporting people in their reconnection with their family, their social support networks, with jobs, with community services. And so the commitment is not just to get them to sign up a lease, but to maintain their housing for the long term. And the RFP that the city is releasing has resources to help support people in housing after they move in. We can share this certainly if people want to look at it, and I'll turn it over to the mayor if there are closing remarks, then maybe questions.
Great. Well, I think you've seen a compelling, comprehensive strategy to address this issue in the city of Cleveland. And just to sum up what we heard today, first and foremost, we have to do a better job of diversifying our housing options for those that are unhoused. Secondly, we must be thoughtful, intentional, and authentic in our outreach to those that are unsheltered in our city. And we have to build on our strengths, and that's why I'm really excited to build on the great work the county has done for decades in this space, leveraging that capacity and that expertise. Then lastly, we have to have urgency. We have to have urgency, and that's why, since Emily joined, we've been working as quickly as we possibly can to stand up a strategy that we know can work because it's been done in cities like Houston across the country. And I think the data point that gets me excited about this issue is when you talk to those that are unsheltered, over 90% say that they want to choose a house when it's immediately available. So we must act fast, we must remove those barriers, and we must make sure that when we house these folks, we give them continued hope to succeed, to be a part of our society. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here today. We've talked a lot about Houston. In that model, over 100 partners were engaged in that effort. So, as I often say, government can't do it alone. I'll say it again. Government can't do it alone. We need everyone in this room and everybody in our community to help us solve this problem in our city to ensure that everyone has a home in our community. With that being said, we'll take a few questions from the press. We can clap back.
Hi, Sam Allard. Can someone put the 150 number in context? What does that represent in terms of the total unsheltered community in Cleveland? And what is that in terms of percentage?
Yeah, that's a good question. So 150 was chosen because we think it's doable. We know it's doable, in fact. I think it's happened before in some form during COVID. It's also happened in the veterans context. So we're hopeful that it's achievable. We also want to use the achievable number as a way that we can refine the model and make sure that we're suiting it to Cleveland. In addition, so 150, I think the county's official number for unsheltered individuals is 500 in the strategic action plan. The point in time count that was just done in January, I think will reveal numbers that are more up to date, and we can understand those as they come out and are released. But we think 150 is doable.
Thanks very much. How much money do you expect this to cost, and where's it coming from?
So the RFP is a $2 million RFP. So we know that will be the initial investment. We've already invested in seasonal shelter earlier this year, so I think it's important to note that. That was from general fund. The $2 million is also from general fund. We know that there is a need to continue this, and that's one of the things we learned from COVID, is that if you invest once and then take a back seat and don't continue investment, then you have a bigger problem. So we are committed to making sure that we are investing appropriately as time goes on. I think it's important to note that the number that would be around permanent supportive housing needs and things like that depends, I think, on the market the day that we deploy the funds. So we're just going to have to see what the necessary investment is as we go along. But we are not only thinking through how to strategically prioritize things like a safe haven model of permanent supportive housing within the mix of our affordable housing, but also how to leverage some of the federal dollars we're seeing around Inflation Reduction Act and others to make sure that we can get there.
And are you anticipating the city itself buying some of these scattered site properties, or are you going to use what's already kind of out in the system?
It's a good question. So I think that the city has a lot of ownership of land right now, right? So one of the things that's very different from other communities that have had success is that city land ownership in Cleveland is very high. So we're going to leverage that, and that's one of the unique landscape opportunities that we think that we can think through. But there are definitely models out there where the city does indeed own the properties that are then leased to an operator who has expertise in working with people who are exiting unsheltered homelessness. So yes, possibly. And we're open to other methods of ownership, yes.
And just one more thing on that. I mean, a lot of what the city owns is vacant parcels of land.
Correct.
Is that need building on those land bank lots?
We need to.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And as you know, we're working on a comprehensive process with our head of community development, Alyssa Hernandez, who's here this morning, really making sure we're being more innovative and thoughtful and quicker in terms of how we transfer vacant land all across the city of Cleveland.
Hi, my name is Yin Pu, and my councilwoman is here. Today I want to talk about two things. One is Penn Avenue, which is a giant terrace. It's already 5 years. For me, I already bring two investors here. But anyhow, it's really tough for buy this building. But the people from Houston, also you just mentioned, right now I just connected Houston with a neon. They want to do some like elderly, facility, but they just tell me it's how hard to deal for the city, which is today have here all the like leadership. For me, it's immigration for 32 years in the United States. I really want Chinatown get more people. Right now in the Middletown, they have Chinese. Most of Chinatown, the business owner, they have children very young. They just even want funded after school. They cannot fund the room for the kids for study. I just wonder, have so many wonderful people here. Maybe can get together, put something nice for Chinatown.
We love to.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah. Hey, Courtney. Yeah.
This does represent a bit of a change for the city to venture into this territory that's traditionally from the county. I'd like to hear thoughts from the mayor and the county executive about kind of why the city needs and ought to step in here.
Well, to be very frank with you, Courtney, over the last 2 years, I've gotten a number of complaints from residents and business owners about the number of tents that we see in our city, the number of folks that continue to be unhoused in Cleveland. And when the county executive got on board, he and I made a commitment to work intentionally about how we can better collaborate between the city and the county to really address this issue. And as you know, historically, we don't have a large social service funding stream in our general revenue fund budget. But we think this is an important first step to come up with a new dynamic approach to address this issue. And I know the county executive is committed to supporting the city where he can as we think about how this issue is affecting Cleveland every single day.
Yeah, and I would just offer basically where I started, which is the great appreciation for the city of Cleveland stepping up and saying, look, this is a shared responsibility. I'm hearkening back to a meeting we had with our staffs at a service garage in the Near East neighborhood where we sat down and just rolled up our sleeves and said, what are we going to do? And we started talking about rooftops. That was the beginning of the narrative. And it ended up in a program that the city innovatively put together with a home for every neighbor. We cannot do this without providing housing itself. And as Matt, our co-consultant, has rightly put out there, it's more than just housing. It's about all the services. And we look out to an army of partners. The army of partners, my observation, and the mayor and I have studied other metros and talked about what other metros are doing. We referenced a number of them today. But we are capable in Cleveland, given this partnership in this room, of solving this problem. The number that was asked about earlier by Sam, I think it's fluctuated, but the numbers we've worked with were between 300 and 500 persons that are in immediate unsheltered situations out there. But if we strike to half of that, we are beginning to really take a big bite out of this apple. And I just want to say again, the great appreciation for the partners that are here. One other thing on the housing front, I've seen innovation at work already in our nonprofits. I look, throughout these tables, and each one of them is doing something interesting. I'm looking at LMM in a program that I saw in the Community Development Corp where they're buying and purchasing housing and taking out master leases so that persons can actually onboard without having to worry about the burden of the next month's rent. And maybe the landlord also has appreciation for an organization that has depth. I'm seeing over at Laura's home, I'm seeing at City Mission, I'm seeing work going on with temporary support housing for women on site, on a campus, near a shelter that is next door to the next step of housing. Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't say two other things. To have Metro Health's partnership here today, thank you. We need behavioral health specialists in the field. We've both worked with our co-workforce investment board on the need for more behavioral health specialists in this community, but to have an immediate hospital partner in the neighborhood that we can lean on, we appreciate you. And finally, to have State Representative Bride Rose Sweeney here. She cares, she's helping with us with the Youth Wellness Center, and I thank you because this is an all-in effort from Cleveland to Cuyahoga County to the state of Ohio to our nonprofit partners. So we're seeing innovation at work right now that we can accelerate and lean in on this problem. And finally, again, to the mayor and our council, they are taking this very seriously, and they're not just saying it's a county issue. They're saying it's all of us, and that's why we're here today to support the mayor.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Where to sit planning? I know, I totally agree.
I'm trying to behave, but I'm like,
I feel for both of you, but I went to some of the meeting